going on, everybody? This is dkdynamite for an absolutely shocking report here for you guys tonight, and I promise this isn't my April Fool's video. We also have a huge update on Nolan North's Richtofen return and even more. Definitely stay tuned. But before we jump into that, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below, drop a like, and make sure you have notifications on to stay up to date with everything going on in Cold War Year 2, Warzone, Modern Warfare 2, and any other future Call of Duty as well. Zombies fans are definitely in for a treat tonight. We have a lot to discuss, and the other day I posted another Zombies video talking about all the quality of life improvements that were added to Vanguard Zombies for those out there that still care about the mode, and believe me, there are a few people left that still do care. And we talked about the new Easter eggs, new features, and some changes that may spark your interest. But also in that video, we discussed a spicy rumor going around yet again about everybody's favorite topic, Zombies Chronicles 2. And I didn't want to make a dedicated video just about that rumor, considering I don't think the rumor really bears much weight. I don't think it's the rumor that everybody thinks that it is. It's not really any information that we didn't already know before, and I personally think the person who tweeted out that rumor was just poking some fun at something that we kind of already have known about for a number of years, but we'll circle back to that. I want to start with a really cool DM I received from Derek. Shout out to Derek if you're watching this video. This really means a lot to me. He goes ahead and says, "Hey DK, big fan. I don't know how else to get this message across to you, but I figured I'd give you some info on some potential zombie news. Nolan North recently went to a convention here in the States this past month, Fandemic Dead. Ended up meeting him and got something signed. I was talking to him and said, I don't know if you've been keeping up with the story or not, but you know, Eddie's back. Nolan smiles at me and says, oh, of course I'm up to date, and hits me with a huge smirk. Also says, stay ready. Take this as you will, but hopefully this helps you." And once again, thank you to Derek for sending me this. This is really awesome news. And what I'll take away from this is, yeah, Nolan North is well aware that we saw a grown-up Eddie at the very ending of the Forsaken Easter egg, and he didn't speak in that cutscene, so we can't jump to conclusions just yet and say, oh, he got recasted, or oh, Nolan North is returning. But the fact that he knows about that just has me thinking, well, we know Eddie probably won't have a German accent in Treyarch's next Black Ops iteration, but I do think Nolan North could pull off just a different style accent for Eddie whenever he does speak again, and he could just give an American accent with a hint of that Richtofen we all know and love. I'm really curious to see how Nolan North can tackle the character a bit differently this time in terms of the voice that he portrays. I'm really excited about that, and the fact that Nolan North is up to date with Forsaken has me thinking that without a doubt in the next year or two, Treyarch should be giving him a call to have his official return at some point in their next Call of Duty. And I know we all want an Eddie Operator bundle, right? A director themed pack, which we have some beautiful concept art of, thanks to Fajardi, as I'll put on screen for you guys. That would be great in Cold War, but like I said before, would they really bring Nolan North back, as expensive as he probably is, just to record lines for a bundle? I think they'd rather wait until he's actually featured in a map during Easter egg steps or as a playable character in their next game entirely, not just for a cosmetic in a game that is on its year 2 of the cycle right now. But at the same time, I think they'd better save his return for a better moment. Now, something crazy also was posted on Twitter a couple of days ago, but nobody noticed it, and all of a sudden today, the individual who posted this Twitter thread ended up tagging COD Zombies HQ, in which a video was then posted about this thread, and I started getting a bunch of DMs about this, and I read the thread and I was like, hold on a second, this is crazy, but let me give you an FYI before we get into the juicy part of this thread. I mean, this kind of lines up with what was already rumored before, and if it's real, it makes sense, it works, but it could also be a glorified fanfic that just happens to line up with rumors that we already heard many years ago. So take it with a grain of salt, as I always say when discussing rumors, but if this is true, this is really interesting, but could also fall under the category of, yeah, dude, trust me, this is legit from my quote-unquote source behind the scenes. That's what this could be. But jumping into the thread itself, from Hayden Prime, his link is down below, he says, and I quote, I think it's time I shared some info on what was planned for Call of Duty Black Ops 4, particularly Black Ops Pass Season 2. Since the hype of Zombies Chronicles 2 and a potential BO2 remaster have resurfaced, do note that my info comes from around the launch of BO4 and is outdated. As many know, Black Ops 4 Zombies is initially going to contain 6 Chaos story maps for Season 1, Year 1, and 6 Aether story maps in Season 2, Year 2. However, early on it was decided that they'd split it half and half. 2 Chaos, 2 Aether maps at launch, and then 2 Chaos, 2 Aether maps as DLC. This trend was planned to continue in Call of Duty Black Ops 4 Season 2, with the final 2 Chaos maps and 2 Aether maps for a grand finale. However, Zombies Chronicles 2 was also planned with 6 reimagined/remastered maps. However, Activision and Treyarch moved to work on what would be Cold War. This shift in production left the finale 2 Aether maps of Season 1 to be finished by a small team and the entirety of Season 2 cancelled. The question is, what would we have seen in Season 2 of Black Ops 4 and Zombies Chronicles 2? first the two Chaos maps, one map I was told would have followed Diego and a new ragtag crew trying to awaken Scarlet on the island of Antikythera, the island where a real-world wonder was discovered, an ancient computer known as the Antikythera mechanism. The second and final map to the Chaos story, Chapter 1, is a bit of an oddity as it would have taken place at the Library of Alexandria, but also Atlantis. I genuinely don't know how this would have played out, but I'm sure Medusa would have been the final boss. As for the Aether story, the first would have been a reimagined Origins during the Battle of the Great War in 1299. Primus wield the Origin staves, the original staves. Likely an alternate ending could be unlocked with Pablo passing a message to Richtofen, allowing the events of Blood of the Dead to occur. The grand finale of the Aether story would have taken place in the Dark Aether, following Victis immediately after Tagder Toten. It would have been similar to Origins, with Samantha leading Victis through the Hellscape, gathering help from allies from throughout the Aether story. These allies would have included Gersh, Maxis, Pablo, McCain, the mob crew, possibly more. The map would have contained enemies from previous maps, but Monty and the Keepers would have been the primary threat. Likely would have ended with our allies joining Sam in the new world. Zombies Chronicles 2 now would have contained 6 reimagined / remastered Aether maps, including Die Rise Remastered, Buried Remastered, 5 Call the Dead and Mob of the Dead as Faithful Remasters, as well as Tranzit as a reimagined expanded map. I know some of the celebrities were in talks to reprise their roles. Danny Trejo and Joe Pantoliano were in talks. That's why Trejo was added to Blackout. I don't know how Romero would have been handled in Call of the Dead, maybe reusing the original dialogue, I don't know. How much of this will we see in the future? Unfortunately, I think the 2 Chaos maps and Dark Aether map aren't ever going to resurface. However, Transit, Die Rise, and Buried are inevitable. If BO2 is remastered, then Mob and Origins are also possible. All this info comes from a close friend who works at Treyarch and has for close to a decade. It's just a shame knowing what could have been, but at least Black Ops Cold War revitalized the Zombies community, even if the community is currently on life support. And yeah, on life support because of what Vanguard Zombies has done, but that's again not Treyarch's fault. We already know the full story behind why that mode even exists to begin with, and it's unfortunate that Treyarch has had to clutch up for Sledgehammer time and time again, which is honestly staining their rep and Zombies as a mode, which shouldn't be happening. It sucks. But let's break this down piece by piece now, and this is crazy. There's a lot to take away from this. So going back to the top, right, looking at the original plan of Black Ops 4 having a year 2, I mean, it was confirmed at the reveal event for Black Ops 4 altogether. I think Blundell even said it himself, that Black Ops 4 was planned to have a multi-year support system when it comes to DLC. So Black Ops 4 was already going to be the first Call of Duty to receive multiple years of life, probably 3, until their next Call of Duty is ready to come out, which would have been, what, this fall actually, or this past fall, 2021. And obviously that didn't happen, and year 2 plans were immediately scrapped when Treyarch figured out that they had to go ahead and make COD 2020 their game. We know the story with that one, but this guy touches on that again. And the thing is, maybe this is just a fanfic, a glorified fanfic that he's pieced together creatively based on the knowledge he has of the games, based on the knowledge he has of all the rumors that have surfaced over the years about canceled content. Maybe that's what this is. And I also want to add that I think the launch of Black Ops 4 Zombies was going to be different at some point. Maybe it was originally planned for them to release 4 maps right off the get-go, 2 Aether, 2 Chaos, but then all of year 1 was about to be Chaos, where we wouldn't see Aether at all again until year 2. To me, they should have done it in reverse, actually. They should have had all of Aether year 1 so they can end it properly with all the budget, they can do everything they want, and then once ending it on the note that they're comfortable with, then I think it would be easier for them to introduce a new story like Chaos that people probably would have been more on board with because they were confident in Treyarch's ability to end the Aether, right, after 10 plus years, and then they would have been down to try something different and something new from Treyarch. But doing that backwards never really made sense to me, and I think Chaos was doomed from the start just because of how they chose to release the maps in that storyline. That's just my opinion on that. Now, if you take a look at the 2 Chaos maps that he speaks about, I mean, this is very specific information, so unless this guy has a lot of time on his hands and managed to come up with all this creatively, and I mean, unless this is something that he's like, yeah, I've had this grand idea for years, I'm now finally putting it on Twitter, then maybe this does bear some weight. Maybe this specific information here does actually mean something, and it's finally surfacing to see the light of day. Maybe that's the case, because there were rumors many years ago that when YouTubers flew out to play, I think one of the DLCs for Black Ops 4, they saw at the main menu of the Zombies game additional Chaos maps that never saw light of day. They saw what was then Nuketown and Call of the Dead was turned into Alpha Omega, Tagger Toten. So they saw early versions and early builds of zombie maps that either ended up coming out or some that didn't happen at all. So YouTubers saw this and were spreading this info like wildfire all across the internet. So we heard about that before, and at that time we also heard about a whiteboard with Call of the Dead gauntlet challenges on them. And what was that for? Of course, the Tag Their Toe and Gauntlet, which came out many months later. So we heard about these rumors many years ago, right? The news was out there, the tea was being spilled, so we know that makes sense. But in terms of the story of these maps, I mean, if this was true, it sounds like it would have worked. It kind of makes sense if you look at the ending of Ancient Evil and where that was leading. We also have the Eye of Apophis melee weapon, which I know for a fact, after doing a lot of research, would have tied in pretty heavily to whatever the next Chaos map was, whether Apophis was the boss, whether we teamed up with him, had to make a deal with him or something. He played a huge role in the mythology that the Chaos story was centered around. So the fact that we got a random Eye of Apophis melee weapon had me thinking that, yeah, that was probably going to be something that we use in a future Chaos map. That didn't happen, but they had the weapon already finished, so they just dropped it as a black market cosmetic, right? Which is cool. I mean, I never complained about that one, and I made a full video just about the Eye of Apophis many years ago. Now, what's also funny is the Library of Alexandra, Atlantis, those are locations mentioned here, and it's crazy how people have wanted to see those locations for years in Zombies, and we were about to get that with Chaos, but unfortunately, people just did not warm up well to the Chaos story as we know it, which is unfortunate because I think the story got really good by the time Ancient Evil rolled around, and maybe it wasn't smart to do the story again out of order, where you start with Voyage and 9, okay, but then you go to Dead of the Night, which to me is an amazing map. I love that map. I mean, yeah, I'm probably biased a little bit because the world's first, but with that, it's a prequel to Voyage, and it's like, all right, well, were the stakes really there on the map? Not really. It's kind of a weird map in terms of narrative, but still, nonetheless, the game would have launched with Voyage and Dead of the Night. Those maps are kind of similar more than they're not, so maybe that wasn't a smart idea to do that, so it worked as DLC 1, but also if you look at the fact that the map got no marketing, it dropped a little early by mistake, so many issues I think really led to the downfall of the Chaos story, but Ancient Evil picked things right back up, and I think furthered the narrative in a great way. But when you look at the Aether mentioned here in this thread, I mean, this is something that I theorized about years ago. If you ask yourself, what would a Great War map actually be like? What would the layout look like? I've always said it would have to be a reimagining of Origins. I mean, we hear it in the Origins intro cutscene on the battlefields of the Great War, and it's really just irony because it's the battlefields of the Great War, World War I, but also the Great War from the zombie story. So, I mean, it would have worked out perfectly to actually do that. It would have been super poetic, and I think that would have been the only way I could have saw a Great War map in fruition. Other than that, I think it's a hard map to envision. It's a hard map to probably execute. Not sure how they could have pulled it off, but yeah, everybody expected the original stabs to pop back up, and we obviously didn't get to see that, so I think there was definitely something that I don't think would have changed the ending of Aether, but just something more to add to it, whereas with the ending we got in BO4, they had to kind of wrap everything up in just 2 maps, which is Alpha Omega and Tag Their Toten, but you can definitely tell from Blood of the Dead, they had a lot planned for the ending of Aether that did not see the light of day whatsoever. Now, what's really interesting though is that Primus apparently still would have gotten their grand finale in the Great War map, the reimagined Origins, but the grand finale of the Aether story altogether was still going to be a map where we played as Victis. That's why I'm kind of thinking, maybe this is some legit information here. He's claiming that, yeah, we would have guided Victis essentially in the Dark Aether, because right now their fate is still unknown. I know Craig Houston himself said that it was the end of the line for Primus, Ultimus, and Victis, but I think if Victis is going to return one day, he wouldn't want that to have been spoiled by that Q&A he did a couple of years ago, so keep that as a surprise if he ever wants to bring them back. We never saw them die, really, so they could still be there. I love his mention here as well about all the other crews also returning. Could have been an Avengers Endgame moment where everybody comes out, everybody helps, everybody fights Monty and the Keepers. That would have been cool, and you just know, right? I went over this in a previous video. You just know that Malcolm McDowell would have been down to return as Monty. He was never given a call back, and you also absolutely know that Monty was going to appear at some point in Black Ops 4, but of course never did, and there was more they could have done with him. Obviously a boss fight, obviously him being in his keeper form would have been cool to go up against, and you just know that was planned, and unfortunately we just didn't get to see that, and he was kind of brushed aside off screen, as you can put. But then he mentioned Zombies Chronicles 2, and here's the thing, right? Everybody was suspicious about the really zombie-centric update towards Operation Apocalypse Z. We had a lot of Victis assets all throughout multiplayer and Blackout, a lot to be exact. We also had Danny Trejo mysteriously just popping up as an operator, and no one was complaining about that. We love Danny Trejo, but we're like, is there a Call of the Dead remaster plan? You know, maybe they have his new model ready. Is he gonna play a role in Tag Their Toten somehow, which we kind of thought was gonna happen? I mean, I think that alone was evidence that something was gonna happen with the original Call of the Dead crew at some point. That could be our evidence that, yeah, we were gonna get faithful remasters of the maps from Black Ops 1 and 2 that never never got them before. And that's the thing, that means we would have got 2 versions of the same map in one game. We would have had Classified and then 5 remastered, Call of the Dead remastered, Richtofen, Mob Dead remastered, Blood of the Dead, and then obviously Tranzit being called a reimagined expanded map. That just would have been the version they originally wanted to come out with back during Black Ops 2 but couldn't because of hardware limitations. It probably would have been like Outbreak if anything, right? An open world type experience with more to do. And he also mentions Die Rise and Buried as faithful remasters. Those maps were fine. I mean, Die Rise could have used the grappling hook, but other than that, I mean, they could have made some changes here and there, but other than that, Transit needed the most work done. But this goes back to what I said before. I mean, look, during Black Ops 4, all the evidence was in front of us. I talked about this in quite a few videos here on the channel, and I mean, there was an overwhelming amount of hate to videos that I made about this topic, even though the evidence was right there in our faces, yet people now are claiming that a Chronicles 2 needs to happen. There's more evidence than ever. I believe it now more than ever. It's like, wait, how? When the assets were there in Black Ops 4, and clearly they weren't used, but could still be reused in the future if they can somehow port that over to Cold War or their next game, sure. But this is why I've been saying Black Ops 4 was absolutely the game for a Chronicles 2, for these remasters. It was the game where everything would have worked, that would have fit actually in the game's menu. Narratively, they could have made everything make sense. Right now, it just doesn't, but I would love to be proven wrong in the next year and a half or longer whenever all these remasters do eventually happen, because they will happen eventually, for sure. Standalone Zombies project that's rumored, that could be all maps in HD. I mean, Chronicles 2 will happen eventually, but this is still a really interesting read. I mean, let me know how you're feeling about this in the comment section. Is this legitimate or not? I mean, no way for us to verify this. I mean, if this gets taken down eventually, which I don't think it will, because they don't typically take down tweets with just words on them. They have to have images or something. But hey, keep this in mind just in the case this comes true one day. But Black Ops 4 has been hot in the news as of lately, which I'm happy about because I really enjoyed that game altogether. I was addicted to Blackout. I really enjoyed the multiplayer. Zombies was really underrated for quite some time. And just now people are finally waking up and realizing how good the Zombies was in that game. And yeah, it has its flaws. Every game does. But with the recent rumors that it could be coming to Nintendo Switch, I cannot wait to play the absolute living shit out of that. If it does happen, I'll be streaming it. I'll redo a bunch of guides and fun videos for you because I really enjoy making content on Treyarch games, obviously, even though I do cover everything. But Black Ops 4 just had a lot offered to content creators to cover, and it's a lot of content altogether for anybody to hop on and enjoy. Yeah, it was a little more difficult than maybe Black Ops 3 or even Black Ops Cold War in a number of ways, but there was a lot to experiment with and play around with in BO4. So I'm looking forward to a potential return to BO4 at some point on a handheld device. But that is about it. This has been dkdynamite. Leave all your thoughts down below in the comment section. What are your thoughts on the absolutely crazy rumors going around right now from this mystery individual with just about 80 followers, right? Is all of this true? Is it copium? Is it a fanfic? I would love to hear your thoughts down below. And also, how are you feeling about the update regarding Nolan North's possible return as Richtofen in the next Black Ops? Really hope you've enjoyed, and peace out, everybody.